All right. Welcome everyone to Warrior Women in Business. It's been a crazy, very good month, being Women's History Month. For those of you that have been tuned to Warrior Women in Business, I think we've had a podcast like 2 a week. My head's going to fall off at the end of this month, but I'm so lucky to have just like the best guests in the universe on the podcast, and also all the events that I've been invited to. For any of you that were following kind of things that were going on last night, I was at the Morgan Stanley Her Way event, which is an incredible group of women in finance that are really doing things to help female entrepreneurs. So that being said, my name is Jasmine Sandler. I run Warrior Women in Business. For those of you that don't know me or don't know the podcast, Warrior Women in Business is a division of my main company, JS Media, which is a branding and marketing agency that's been around since 2006. And most of what we do is we do personal branding. And a lot of that work is done for women, female executives turning into entrepreneurs, female partners, women in business, female business owners, and as we all know, women in the arts. For any of you that have watched my many, many podcasts about interviewing women in arts and entertainment, but primarily in New York. In the last couple of years, I've been branching off Warrior Women in Business and JS Media into my favorite zip code, 90210, Beverly Hills. And so I am really excited for today's guest, Tiffany Davis, the CEO of Quay Entertainment, recently nominated for Councilwoman of Beverly Hills. And she is a real go-getter in Beverly Hills area, as a community leader, as a woman in business, as a big part of the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce. In fact, I wouldn't even be a member of the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce if it weren't for Tiffany. So thank you so much for making my California reality come true.
Aw.
In a very, you don't know that, but you actually have been, you
Aw.
don't know that, but you actually have helped me
Aw.
make that decision. So I'd like to, if you want to say hello, Tiffany, and then I'm going to kind of jump right into the podcast a little bit.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me on, Jasmine. I did not realize that. I do remember when we met and you were getting involved, but that's very humbling. So I'm glad that you got involved. Glad I could help.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we all know, and we were actually talking about it last night, Tiffany, in the Her Way event about, it was like mind-opening for me last night, talking about how women make decisions, women in business make decisions.
Okay.
A lot of times we're going in the wrong direction and we don't even know. And so I think it's for other women and female mentors to kind of light the way for us.
Right.
So I learned that, yeah, you need mentors around you, and sometimes they don't even realize that they're mentors.
Yeah.
So that being said, I want to give a brief on Tiffany, and I'm going to do my best shot at this because she has like an incredible background. And so I don't know if you remember, Tiffany, but I think I originally reached out to you because we do, in my business, we do some work with artists and athletes, and I wanted to understand what the entertainment industry is all about in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, and she knows.
Aw,
So
you're so sweet.
I don't. I know New York. So anyway, so just a background on Tiffany. She's a very, very accomplished event marketing and fundraising executive, and she has worked with major people in events. Most recently, the Grand Prix Formula One, right? It's very
Right.
exciting, as well as A-list celebrities. She's a real go-getter in the Beverly Hills scene in terms of community development. I think you're involved in something with the schools and music, right? As
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Yeah, I'm on their the high school advisory board for their music industry students. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, as a musician, I obviously definitely appreciate that. And she's worked with 500, Fortune 500 companies. She's produced, I'm sure, big and small events in
Sure. Yeah.
the area, and, really is a ringleader in getting things done. And so I asked Tiffany to be on the podcast because, as we know, this is Women's History Month, and I only have people that have been there, done that, that I think are doing things to help female leaders as well as female entrepreneurs. So I wanted her to share her story, talk about how she got in the business and how she succeeded in the business. I know in Los Angeles, from my own small experience in the last 5 years, it is not easy, especially in the entertainment world.
Mhm.
So let's start there, Tiffany, if you don't mind. Talk about like your journey, not to be too cliche, but how you got here, how you
Okay.
succeeded, what you think has helped you along the way, and where you're going now.
Well, I think that's a great place to start because in being women's, month, what, history or, celebration, we celebrate all month. It's perfect because actually the way I got my start is through my mom. Who is actually my 50-50 partner in the company. So we're a women-owned business. But she was actually a pioneer. She started her own live production, concert production company when I was probably around 15 maybe years old, like beginning of high school. And I worked with her, of course, part-time volunteering, learning. So that's where I cut my teeth. But really, I didn't appreciate that until much later because I didn't realize how hard this industry is for women, especially if you go back 30, 40 years. So it was really a man's game then. And it's still to some degree, or a lot of, a big degree, a man's game. But we certainly have come a long way for sure. But anyway, that's where the journey began, technically. And so I learned a lot about the entertainment industry through her, live entertainment specifically. Got to know a lot of people who worked in the industry, had no idea it would help me in the future. You never know where life's going to take you or what your journey actually is going to be. And from that, I went to college. I got a degree in education. I was going to be an elementary school teacher, and I actually was for 2 years. I taught for 2 years, and then realized that just wasn't the path I wanted to be on. So I moved out to Los Angeles from Texas. That's where I grew up. And still really didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. But long story short, I ended up, realizing when I dug deep what made me the most excited. And that was live entertainment and live events. And so I decided that's what I wanted to get into. And I started working out here for a company that produced a televised award show, the Academy of Country Music. And so we put on the Academy of Country Music Awards. And at the time it was on CBS for many, many years. And that was super exciting. I mean, just really thrilling. And that really began my professional career outside of my mom's company, on my own. And so, one thing leads to another. Went from that company to, I moved to Nashville for a while, and I ran I ran an organization there in entertainment where we produced a huge conference every year, showcased at least 50 artists every year. And we worked with all the major talent agencies. And so the purpose of the conference was to bring together talent agents and talent buyers so that, those are two sides of the deal, both, those are the two opposite sides of the same deal. And so it was really a lot of fun, and again, working with artists is always fun. Producing events are always fun. At the end of the day, I get the thrill from seeing the audience reaction from when it all comes together. So, and then just to bring it full circle, years went by and I came back I missed Los Angeles. I missed the Beverly Hills area, which is where I was prior, and came back here. And my mom and I joined forces and started Key Entertainment, which is spelled Quay, like Quay.
No, I always pronounce something on this podcast.
No. Everyone does that. And actually, we knew that going in when we named this company, and we said it's going to be a conversation piece because I'm going to say Quay, and that's okay because now I say Key, and then you remember, wait, it's not Quay. I think it's Key.
No, that's really good. I feel like as a branding person, I want to see it spelled out. You know what I mean? Like a dictionary spelling.
Exactly. But that's okay. That's kind of was part of the, we love the word and the meaning behind the word, which is like a mooring and a safe place. So that was the meaning behind it. But, we definitely knew that was going to be a conversation starter. So, so Key Entertainment, QUAY Entertainment is our company. And we've been doing this together since early 2018. And as far as Los Angeles goes, to kind of speak to your point, Los Angeles is actually extremely hard in entertainment because it's saturated. It's so oversaturated with companies and so many people who do what we do. And so if I'm being completely transparent, we do most of our work outside of Los Angeles.
No, I was saying that last night. They said, how's your business going? Right. And I said, well, most of my business is outside of New York. I really don't know why I'm here. It's funny. No, it's funny how things change, but go ahead.
Well, but I think that there's a respect that comes with being based in New York or Los Angeles, right? Because they are hard and they're competitive. And it's kind of like, well, if you can do business in those towns, you're probably good at what you do because there's a natural weeding out process of people who aren't. And so I think it actually adds to the resume, that you are in one of those two cities. And then from there, people in other parts of the country are like, okay, I want an LA-based, company or a New York-based company. So, I think there's some rhyme, to the reasoning there. But it's not why I just wanted to live here, frankly, because I love the California weather and I love
Yeah,
this
it's great.
side of the earth here. And but yes, so most of our stuff, we do stuff anywhere, all over the country. We'll go worldwide, certainly. Things are different since the pandemic a little bit. That completely disrupted, as we all know, and it stopped everything. And then it took a long time to get built back up. And we're still building back up. Some of
Yeah.
those big events.
Residual effect of COVID is not a year. It's a
It,
few years, right?
it absolutely is. And things are a little different and budgets are different. And
Yeah, I
so
was
it's
gonna say the economic change. I talk
Mhm.
about that a lot, because it's like there's inflation everywhere since COVID. So we all need to, I think we talked about it on maybe 2 episodes ago, like the
Okay.
adjusting in
Mhm.
pricing for all businesses, right?
Absolutely. The inflation and also just the mindset. I think pre-COVID, it felt like people were spending money, people were spending
Yeah.
on huge corporate events and huge
Mhm.
private events. And it's just, I think everyone got used to free because everything was online and it was basically free, if not
It's
completely.
so true.
And it's like hard to get people back to that level of spending. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we were being wasteful, but when it's time to hire people to perform services for you, it's really tough when when you're trying, and we go through it
No,
all the
that's a
time.
really good point. Let's stop there and talk. Thank you for the background and all
Sure.
of that. Let's stop there and talk about value. And this is something I talk about with a lot of my guests,
Okay.
because a lot of my guests are in services-based companies or nonprofits. And so let's talk about value. So if you need to raise your rates or when you're selling your services, right? When the conversation around price and cost happens,
Mhm.
how do you substantiate your value? How do you selling your value? And what advice do you have for other women business owners in service-based companies on how to sell in their value?
Okay, great question. And actually, one you would think by now we don't even think twice about this, but we do. And we literally just this week, submitted a proposal. We've been submitting a few proposals, in the last recent few weeks. And every time we go through, and the way we do it is we have a daily rate per person based on their level, right? So if it's myself or my mom, who we're executives, we have a daily rate. And then if there's people below us that we're hiring that maybe don't have quite as much experience or the job is
Right.
not quite as demanding, what we're hiring them for, we actually assign rates to that. And then we put a timeline together. And then it's literally that person's day rate times how many days are they working. And we adjust for whether it's just light advanced days on a live show where you're just doing some computer work or phone calls versus load in days, load out days versus show days. The intensity, the hours are all different. The job performance is slightly different. So we just do it that way. And what we'll do is we put together the full proposal. And we always know, 99% of the time, it's going to come back with a counter offer. It's going to,
Come on.
can you, can you come down a little? So
Yeah.
we're very realistic and we don't like to mess around. Nobody likes to waste time. And we're all, we're
Yeah.
where it's like, let's get the deal done. So what we like to do is we like to be very fair. And I think that our daily rate is, we've never had to really prove why. I think people understand. They see our resume. You can read about us on our website, so you can see what we've done, and people in our industry understand. They associate the resume to the value because they've got those resumes too, frankly. So they understand. So
Right.
I don't think we've ever been told we're out of line with our pricing, but what we will, often will happen is they'll come back and say, okay, well, the client only has X amount. Can you come down to that? And hopefully it's close enough that we can deal with it. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just like it's not, unfortunately, the job is not worth it because what we're
Yeah.
doing is we're picking up other work to take that job, and we're not really getting what our fair, rate is. But usually you can come to an agreement, usually.
Yeah. So you said in your industry. So I want to talk about that too, because a lot of what I do is helping, companies understand their referral network.
Yeah.
Even though it's
Yes.
not really even my job. I just do it anyway. No, but I'm just wondering, so talk about that a little bit in terms of where you get your business from. Is it more direct? Is it agencies as a service company?
Great
You know,
question. Great
yeah,
question.
because a lot of companies, again, a lot of my listeners are women that I come across are in these service-based companies and
Yeah.
they have a tough time
Well,
with direct. So
In ours, and when I say our industry, I'm speaking specifically the live entertainment industry. So
Okay.
concerts and festivals and things like Formula One, where there's some sort of live component to it, usually, an entertainment component. And you're coming together and you're working with other people, and usually large scale. Okay, that we do a lot of large scale stuff. So when you kind of get to this point where you're working with that big of a client, it certainly it suddenly turns into referral only, really, honestly. And it's not because I wouldn't take, I mean, I would be happy to talk to anyone about any type of event. We're open to talking to any sort of client, but it just seems to happen that way. So what happens is, you go to one event, you're working on it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and through that process you're meeting other people at your same level from other parts of the country. And
Yeah.
then inevitably what'll happen is someone will go, hey, you know what I've got coming up? I've got something in 3 months or 6 months, or, down the line. I'd love for you to come be a part of that. Could you help me with that? And it just kind of works that way. And it is very uneven. It is not a steady line. It is not a,
Yeah.
I wish it would
That
be
would
nice.
be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice to know that every month someone's asking us to, but it's not like that.
Right.
I always compare it to real estate. I said it's like it's like
Oh,
selling homes. Maybe you sell 3 in one month, and maybe you don't sell any for 6. And it's like you have to.
every person I meet in Beverly Hills sells real estate.
I,
Yeah, no kidding.
they are either selling real estate or they are a banker. I mean, that is the only people
It's
that
the
I see
funniest
out
thing.
there.
I always come home and like, how was it? I said, well, I got a lot of homes I've looked at.
Exactly. It
But
is.
anyway,
It's huge. Yeah, I don't know how there's talk about a saturated market, but anyway.
it's crazy.
Yeah, so that's how we do it usually. I will tell you, and I'm just, again, I like to be very real with people. I was actually frustrated when I'm very, much involved in the chamber, and probably more so, probably up until about a year or so ago, I've gotten busy with other stuff, but I was very, very involved going to all the meetings and, the networking breakfast and all that stuff. And what I found is, I didn't receive a lot of business from that, but I will say we are unique. I'm not a dentist office, and, I'm not a realtor.
Exactly,
I'm not,
right.
and I'm not providing a service that people need on a weekly basis, right? I mean, this is kind of specialty. So that's part of it. One of the things that, I will say happens when you market, or what I found when I market or try to market our company on a broad way, um, I typically attract people who want me to do stuff for free or close to free. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you produce events. I have a
Free
charity.
is not me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
Free is not me.
yeah, exactly. And so it's just that.
It's a value, right? I understand.
Value goes back to value. And so I'm always happy. Like right now I'm working on something, I'm in Rotary Club. That's a charity.
Yeah,
It's
something
dear
that
to
you're
my heart.
involved with, a nonprofit, yes.
Right. And I'm
You have
working on an
a
event.
passion for.
Yeah, for them that's free. I help produce a street festival in Beverly Hills called Next Night, and I
Ooh,
do that completely free. I mean, that's a completely 100% volunteer, and it's for the city. So I
yeah,
do like to give back, and I like to donate my skill set, but you have to have a limit to that, of course, because you have to make money. So what I have found is the best way for us to market at our like kind of level and wanting our fee is it's got to be through referrals with other people who work at that same level.
yeah, absolutely. And so now I want to get into a little bit about women connecting, supporting each other, driving referrals, and what it's like to have your mom as a partner.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
your mom because she's your mom, but also your mom because she's a woman. So talk to us a little bit about what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
In general, pros and cons. I mean, you don't have to give me too much information,
Yeah.
and whatever you're comfortable with. And then why you think female partners can work well together.
Okay, great questions actually. So we are a little unique because we are mother-daughter. Not that we're the only ones, but when I tell people that, they're always like, "Oh, wow." They think it's so cool. Everyone's like, "That's so cool. How do you do that?" So
I think
it's always
it's
like, "Wait a minute, what?" So I will tell you, first of all, we're very much alike. Both I learned, obviously from her. She's extremely organized, extremely efficient, that sort of, so I learned all those skills from her. So I understand her language basically, right? So we work
yeah,
well in that regard because we understand what needs to be done, and we both have very strong work ethics. So that's the easy part. She's very creative. I'm very creative. We 99% of the time, agree with each other's ideas. So that's easy. And as far as the dynamics, I think in the beginning, maybe it was a little bit rockier to separate the personal relationship from the business relationship.
Yeah.
But I will
Mhm.
say, I think we've done a really good job at when we're talking about business, we're respectful of each other that it's about business. And so
So
I don't
important.
feel that she's very, she's very good about saying, okay, I think we need to do this. She handles our finances. So that's kind of one of her main, pillars of her job is dealing with our finances and our insurance and all that stuff. And so there's a lot in there that you have to decide. And are we going to spend this? And what are we doing with this? She's very, very respectful about calling and saying, hey, I think we need to do this. I want to run it by you first. What do you think? So I think, and vice versa. I mean, I wouldn't take a job for us, for instance, if I was talking, I wouldn't agree to do an event without we're talking through with her. We get on a Zoom with somebody, a potential client together. So we don't make any major decisions for the company unilaterally. We always do it together. And so that's worked really well. And then, of course, we do have our mother daughter time outside of it. I would say it's hard to separate. Like it's inevitable. If we go to dinner, we're going to end up talking about business. I mean, there's
Or
no
yeah,
way
yeah,
to
yeah.
completely
Mhm.
separate it. But we definitely try to have those phone conversations that are just about the family and things like that. So, but it's actually worked pretty well. I don't know that a lot of people could do it though, because usually what I hear is just the dynamics would between mothers and daughters, which can be complicated, wouldn't work well. But I think we're pretty lucky. We get along pretty well. So
Yeah, absolutely. So let's
yeah.
talk about women in entertainment in general. Do you hire women women, I'm assuming like whatever. I mean, I deal in the music world, so like
Mhm.
stage hands or sound engineers or ushers or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have a focus on hiring women? Have you worked with other women where you say, woman does a really great job and why? Just a little bit about that, what you've
Sure.
seen.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I will tell, I just to kind of round out our company, my stepdad, so my mom's husband, who, is my stepdad for over 20 years, is our production manager, our director of production. So he's an integral part to what we do, very much so. And he's got deep, deep, deep roots in the industry, knows a million people. Oftentimes he's the one that gets the phone call for the next job. I mean, a lot of times. So we're, grateful for that. And what I love is he loves working with women because I don't think there's a man on the planet, whether they'll admit it or not, but I don't think there's a man on the planet that doesn't understand that women are just good at getting things done. I mean, we are
Yeah, no
organized.
kidding.
I mean, I really do. And I always appreciate a
Yeah.
man who can respect that, what, women are just better at this, or they're more meticulous, or they're more, so we all three actually do love we love when there's like a solid woman that comes into the mix. For instance, what the way our industry works is there's the three of us in the company full time. And then when we do get an event, we, 9 times out of 10 are going to need to staff up, to
Yeah.
fill
Or-
spots for things. And
Mhm.
just like you said, whether that's stagehands or that's, just production assistants or, transportation experts or whatever it may require. And so we, certainly we all have our go-to people that we like to, go to that we know work well. And several of them are women, and some are men, certainly, but,
Oh,
so I wouldn't say that we consciously say we're only hiring women for this or anything, but it just so happens that we end up working with really great, strong women. And it works, and the dynamics work well with our company. And like I said, luckily, my stepdad's a very evolved person. He's been in this industry forever when it was totally a man's world,
yeah.
but
Oh, he's interesting.
yeah, and he has this great, respect for,
Yeah.
women. And I honestly, I think we prefer it in a lot of ways because we just know it's going to get done.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Beverly Hills. For
Okay.
most of my audience is in New York. So
Okay.
um, talk a little bit about the business landscape there. Um, if a woman business owner like a startup is looking to branch out over there,
Mhm.
it could be any brand. Just what you've seen in terms of community embracement, resources, obviously the Beverly Hills Chamber. Any
Mhm.
other resources that you can talk about? Like, how is Beverly Hills unique, you think, to other cities? Like you mentioned Nashville. I
Mhm.
always say it's the trifecta in the music industry. So, other cities that you've worked in, how is it different? How is it, the pros and cons of that for women that are looking to branch out there?
Yeah. Again, you're a great interviewer. I so
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks.
the
I'm pretty
question.
good. To me, this is like the easiest thing. Interviewing is like, I don't even know why it's so.
These are great questions. I
I
really
don't
appreciate
know.
it. Thank you. You and it's almost like you're reading my mind. No, so Beverly Hills is so unique. Okay, so I'm just again going to be very frank, and this is something I actually just have recently because I did just finish a campaign for city council. Unfortunately, did not win a seat, but that's okay. But it was a great experience talking to the community and talking a lot about the business landscape in Beverly Hills. So I will tell you what the conversations were. The conversations are that Beverly Hills is very good at bringing in shopping. We're a
Yeah,
shopping destination for sure. So retailers, restaurants, we have some of the best restaurants in the world. We have quite a few restaurants in a very small footprint. And hotels, we have amazing hotels. So for those three categories, I think we're gangbusters. We're doing great. There's not a lot else right in Beverly Hills. And people have to understand
yeah,
Beverly Hills is only 5 square miles. So it is
yeah,
not a huge, and a lot of that's residential. I mean, the business district is tiny.
yeah.
So you're cramming a lot into a very, very concentrated area, which makes perfect sense for tourism. You walk the streets, you can hit everything easily in a day, if you, or a couple for
Agreed.
sure.
Mhm.
So it's wonderful for that. We have a great art scene. We've got beautiful art throughout the city. The city literally owns an amazing art collection, permanent art collection, and then we have great galleries throughout. So
Yeah,
it's
I was going to say my last trip, I hit some galleries finally.
yeah. So for those industries, it's great. Now, if you want to come in and start a business, my first piece of advice would be you really need to research what's there already. Make sure that you're not oversaturated in that industry already. And really I would talk to the business owners who've been there for 20 and 30 years. And in particular, I'll give you a great example. We have several restaurants. Restaurants will come and go, and that's a hard industry, but
Yeah.
anywhere.
Tell me about in New York, right? I used to do
Oh, yeah.
restaurant marketing, just so you know, for 10 years.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I've worked with
cool.
I don't even know how many restaurants. And
Oh
I
man,
know it's a high turnover.
high turnover, and
Depending.
then some stick, right? And they're just there
Some
forever.
stick. Yes, some definitely stick and they grow, and they can exist for 20, 30 years. It just
Yeah, and
depends
so
on the
we
business
have
model and funding, yeah. But
yeah,
anyway, keep
have some of those. And so what I always say to anybody coming in, and I've talked to a few restaurant uh, owners coming in before they even before they even get the keys to the doors. And I said, here's my piece of advice to you. You need to have a conversation, and I'll name 2 or 3 people who own restaurants in the city who've been there 20, 30 years. I said, if they will meet with you, you just ask them what they're doing. And I will tell you from a customer perspective, what I think is valuable and maybe a misunderstanding of Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills has a lot of wealth in it, but people are very conscientious about what they're spending their money on. If you live there,
absolutely.
if
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's one thing to
Yeah,
go on vacation and blow money, and dine at the fine.
that's not how the people are who live there. They're similar
Right. The
to.
people who live there, they love good value. And so those restaurants in particular that have lasted, that's what I see as the common thread.
I do too. I tell people when I come home, they say, "How's the social life?" And I said, "Well, if you want to have a social life in Beverly Hills, you should be a foodie." And
Yeah.
it's so true. But it's
Yeah.
great. It's a great restaurant scene.
It is
Yeah.
a great restaurant scene, but 100%. And the other thing we talked about throughout the campaign, and I've always talked about because this is my world, is there is a lack of social nightlife, a lack of entertainment. It's just not what the town's known for, and that was done very purposely.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I think about a decade or 15 years ago, the residents really just didn't want a buzzing night scene. They wanted the town to go quiet a little bit. It's changing. I think people are realizing we need a little bit, so there's a lot of talks going on about bringing some stuff in. So hopefully I can be helpful in that regard. But anyway, so if you're coming to Beverly Hills and you want to start a business here, you really have to do your research and know that people are very loyal here. The people who live here, if that's who you're catering to, not tourists per se, you need to make sure that you're going to fit into their world. Don't just assume, you open your doors and they start frequenting. It's a tough town to break into. People are very loyal and they have habits, so they frequent
I noticed that when there was a few folks that I met with, I mean, I'm always there, and that said, "Oh, I actually have one that started an art gallery and in Beverly Hills, and they closed it very quickly." because they were not, I mean, in my conversations with them, they just weren't, it didn't seem like they were embracing the community. They said, well, people are just going to walk in the door. I was like, what world do you live in? In New York, if you open an art, I mean, I love the arts. If you
Yeah.
open an art gallery, you better be having ongoing events
Events and
and
yeah.
a lot of local PR because, and some heavy hitting names, right? Because
Mhm.
otherwise they're not even gonna know about you.
I'll tell you who did a great job at that, and so far so good. Well, I mean, hopefully they're around. They've been here for a couple of years now, but it's called the Hideaway, a restaurant on Rodeo Drive, and it's hidden,
I've heard of
literally
it.
hidden. It's called the Hideaway, and it is, and it's in a restaurant that had, had previously been a restaurant that had closed, and so immediately I was nervous. I was like, oh no, they're not going to make it. But what they did do is they have some celebrity investors, but that's not a bulletproof way of doing it
Yeah.
because a lot of restaurants have celebrity investors and they don't last. What they did is they had a huge opening. They did
Yeah.
such buzz on social media, and then they continued. I mean, their social media game is very strong, and they just continued to create that great vibe, and they were the talk of the town. And has it died down a little? Of course it has, but I think they're still doing fine. But then on the flip side, we have another restaurant that I won't name the name, but they're still open, but they have a celebrity ownership and they did none of that. And they have been struggling, and and we were so excited about them, but you have to do the marketing, and again, not
Yeah.
just,
Oh,
yeah.
I've launched so many restaurants in New York City. You have no idea. Even one that I remember that's still around. I still can't believe it. It's like in New York, the real estate space, not like in Beverly Hills, is
Mhm.
like a cubicle.
Right,
So
right,
you
right,
know what
right.
I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, this restaurant in particular is on the Lower East Side. Before the Lower East Side was like hot in terms of people with money coming in there. There's
Yeah.
a hole in the wall. So I just went around and I got almost literally every business owner to show up to a launch party, got all the bloggers in. They
Yeah.
kept, and you have to get that community footprint,
Yeah.
right?
And
Immediately.
embracing you mentioned embracing the community, and that's a perfect way of
Yeah.
saying it. You have to say, I'm so glad I'm here and I want to embrace you, not, hey, I'm here and
Yeah.
aren't you lucky I'm here? Because again, this is a very tight knit, we call it Mayberry. We joke around and say it's like a Mayberry. But
That's true.
a lot of times, I mean, it kind of is. And so again,
Yeah.
it's people are friendly. It's not that they're snobby. They're just very used to what they know. And so you really have to kind of get through that first layer and say, I really want you to come to my restaurant. I want you to come to my store. I want to be part, and you have to get involved in the community. That's the other thing. You need to start showing up to the farmers market and things like that and just get to know the community. And then people become very loyal, but they have to know you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
let's talk about women supporting women in general,
Yeah.
right? Besides your mom, which is just such a fantastic story. It's the first time I've actually heard of a successful mom-daughter business. So
Oh.
like really, and at least in my travels. So besides your mom, in your career, kind of overall, can you talk about how you've seen, well, especially in entertainment?
Uh-huh.
How have you seen networks of women? Because I know the Live Nation. I don't know if you know the Live Nation women's group, but I know them pretty well here in New York. How
Mhm.
have you seen that change and grow in terms of women supporting women in the entertainment industry? And what can women do you
Mhm.
think, to either break into the entertainment industry or succeed in the entertainment industry as a woman?
Okay. Well, it's interesting. It's really evolved. So I've been working professionally for, let's call it 20 years, right? Approximately 20 years. So it's changed a lot in 20 years. I will tell you again, I cut my teeth with my mom's company, but then my first job in the industry was given to me by a woman. She was a top agent at the time they were called William Morris
Oh,
agency. Now they're
okay.
WME agency,
Same.
but and she still is. She's a partner and she's, one of the few female partners there, but I met her through my mom's company and then years later said, I'm here in LA and I want to get into the industry. And so she immediately started looking for opportunities for me. And she is the one that presented me with my first job. And so I'll always remember that and I'll always be grateful for that. But, she's somebody who had to really fight her way up that ladder, right? She was in an agency world, man's world, and went all the way to the top with it and has gone all the way to the top with it. She's still there. But so that always left an impression on me because, again, at the time, you don't have the perspective. You don't think this is no big deal. Of course, she's helping
Yeah,
me.
you don't even think about it,
And
right?
then you look back and you go, wow, a lot of women don't help women. And so what I did learn in those first 10 years, let's say, is that there were more women, unfortunately, than men who tried to hold me back, who tried to, it was a very cutthroat environment, more so than I imagined it was going to be.
Mhm.
And so I certainly realized, okay, not every woman's my friend. They
Yeah.
would steal, and it wasn't like we were having fist fights. It was more subtle. It's what women are
Well,
very,
yeah, well, women do that.
women are manipulative, right? So women know
Yeah,
how to,
yeah, women do
you know,
that. It doesn't
with a
surprise
smile
me.
on their face. So what was
Right.
happening were things like as simple as stealing my ideas. I'd be
Ugh.
in, having a conversation, and the next thing I know, I'm in a staff meeting listening to someone else present my ideas as their own, things like that. And I thought, wow, I was like, what is this? So you kind of toughen up, you get a little wiser, you learn how to, be a little more protective. But I'm proud of myself that I never let it change my attitude towards helping other women, because I was always mentoring. I'm a teacher. That's my degree. I taught school for 2 years before I did all this. So that's
Invaluable in business, actually.
and I think it's, that part of me is never going to go away, to who wants, I always want to help. Literally yesterday, I spent half my day at the high school career day speaking to students about the
Oh,
music industry. So I love that. And so what I started doing in my 20s was mentoring other, college students, interns, young professionals. So I think that's very important. So I never viewed it as I don't want to help any other women succeed. I actually looked at it the opposite way. I knew that the door had been opened for me very easily with this friend who, opened the door for me because I knew her through my mom's company. It's a lot about who you know, but it's not
yeah,
easy to meet the right people. And so you need someone to open the door. So I was very aware that that door was opened for me really easily. So I felt like I needed to pay it forward, right? And keep opening it. And I feel like I've
yeah.
done that, and I continued, and I will happily continue to do that. I also too, I think our attitudes have changed for the better. Thank God. I think there was a time where women were like, there's only so few spots for women. So
That's
we
true.
we
That
can't
is,
let
that's
other
a
women in.
really, really good point, actually.
Right.
Mhm.
And now I think we realize there are no limits to the
Yeah.
spots. Like there's no finite
Well,
number that we all of a sudden have filled all the spots for women. Now it's like, no, there's plenty of room for all of us, so let's let everybody in, and whoever's going to succeed is going to succeed, and those who don't, they don't.
that's also a really good point.
Mhm.
And I
So
think the more that, right, and the more that you're open and embracing, the more that you're going to create connections and develop
yeah,
relationships. And from what I'm hearing about your entire linear history here, it seems like these relationships have really helped you, and you also being open and creating relationships.
100%. It is all about relationships. I actually said that yesterday to the high school students, because we're talking about how do you network? How do you get to meet people? And
Oh, yeah.
and the one thing I said was, and what's funny is there was a panel of us, and two of us already knew each other. We didn't know we were on this panel together until we showed up, but we've known each other. She actually works for the Music Forward Foundation with Live Nation. So we hadn't seen each other in
Oh,
3 or 4 years. We're like, oh my gosh. And then the other woman that was on the panel with us, we had never met her before, but what come to find out, we had so many people in common. And it was great to see that unfold in front of the students. And we said, look, this is the reality. It's
yeah.
all about relationships, and the industry is small. You think it's huge because you think, oh,
Oh,
it's
forget
cool.
it.
It's
I
very,
speak at NAM, and it's like there were 65,000 attendees.
mhm,
And then I come back to New York and I'm like, wow, this person knows this person. It's
mhm,
crazy. So
very
I
small.
get
It's very
it.
important. So I said, don't ever overlook, nurture those relationships. Don't burn bridges. Even if something doesn't work out, it's okay. We all have that.
Yeah,
Just
you just move
end
on.
in politely, move on. You will see
Yeah,
that person again. I
yeah,
guarantee
you
you.
will.
You know. So
Mhm.
yeah, but it's all about relationships. And honestly, I feel so fortunate because so many doors have been opened by both men and women. And I do want to stress that because, I think sometimes men get a bad rap, when we're talking all about women helping
Oh,
women,
yeah, yeah. Agreed.
as if men don't. And I will tell you with 100%, I have had so many amazing, powerful men open doors for me, offer opportunities, and not one of them ever tried to take advantage of that. They never expected anything. They
Wonderful.
never made
That's
a
great.
move. It was never so luck. I don't know how I did it, but I came through unscathed on that. I'm
Well,
grateful.
you
And
found mature men, I would say.
they were good. They're good people, right? They're
Good
just good people.
people.
And they're
Yeah.
still continue to be mentors. I still ask them for advice, and they still
Yep.
continue to be great friends, and
Yeah.
they're always cheering me on along with my female mentors. So, I
Yeah.
think there's room now for all of us, and we can work in harmony now.
Yeah, agreed. And it does take both. I mean, one of my clients, it's been my client for over a decade. And he
Mhm.
sent me a letter. He said I helped him retire, which I don't believe. But
Aw,
no, he's like the sweetest person. Anyway,
yeah.
he's one of my big, I say I have like maybe five mentors, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, he actually started working with me because he was the leading male on the women's initiative at Roche Diagnostics. So
Oh,
he always supported women. It's
yeah.
interesting, like there are men, and look, men are in power positions.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
Well,
know,
that's what
so this
I
Warrior
try.
Women in Business isn't about women and just women. It's about supporting women,
Uh,
wherever that comes from.
Absolutely. I mean, and really, truly, the time that I was kind of coming up in this industry, it's still all the men were in charge. That's just the way it was.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
president of every company was a man. And so had they not opened those doors, I would have caused me to hit roadblocks. And luckily, they saw potential and they saw the future. And they understood. We need good women coming up. So, yeah, I was lucky that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Warrior Women in Business.
Yeah.
So when I want to know what you think about the term, because we talked about it a little, you actually were shining some light on it there in your answer, but when you hear the term Warrior Women in Business and you see the woman, what comes to mind?
I think just tough is the wrong word. I think warrior, meaning warrior to me in business would mean somebody who's not going to be stopped, right? So it's somebody who's going to push through whatever walls are in front of them, whatever barricades. But I think where we are different as women from men is that we do it, or we're expected to do it in a way that is sweeter, nicer, polite,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Because otherwise we're labeled, as we know, right? And then we're difficult and we're hard to work with and that sort of thing. I think that, the most successful women that I admire, I will say, do embody the warrior side, but the grace as well. They've kind of figured out that
Absolutely. Oh,
confidence is what's most important. And confidence can come in lots of forms, but being yourself and being kind and open and being tough when you need to. I think a great example, I'm always told I'm too nice. I'm too nice because I'm naturally just a friendly, outgoing, nice person. And I
you're a
always,
Southerner though, so I would expect
I
that.
am from, yeah, I'm from
I would
Texas.
expect.
You're right. You're right. And we are,
Yeah.
we are brought up to be very friendly. It's the
Yeah.
friendship state. Excuse me. And so, I do think that's a lot of it. But in this industry where people sometimes can be so rude and just so,
Yeah.
abrupt and, with no sort of, skills for communication, sometimes you kind of learn how to deal with that. And I'll give you a good example of that. I learned early on in live entertainment, oftentimes you get to an event, you get to a concert, it's load in day, and the tour manager shows up or the production manager shows up, usually a man. And they have been taught, be aggressive first and mark their
Yeah.
territory, let you know that this is their building now and they're going to take over. And so
Yeah.
what I learned was that's what they're going to do. And then I'm going to counteract that by saying, oh my God, yes, you're so glad you're here. What can we do to make your life easier?
Love
And I
that.
learned that again. I learned that from my mom watching. She picked up
Yeah.
on that early. It's like, we're here to help you. And then they kind of come down a little and go, oh, okay, hold on. I don't have to prove.
Yeah.
But every now and then you get that just, a-hole basically, who gets in your face or whatever. And it's funny because people have been surprised because I'm so nice and sweet, but somebody comes in at me and I
You're like, no, no,
right back.
no.
I give it right back to them. And usually they're taller, bigger, whatever. I give it right back to them. And then they back off. And then we have a conversation. And so when I think of warrior, I think it's like, you've got to have all of that. I don't think men have to have all that. I think men can just, be abrupt if they want. Nobody cares. Nobody comments. We have to finesse it a little bit. But yeah, but
Yeah.
I also think just not giving up. I think, to me, a warrior is someone who keeps going, they don't let one battle get them down. They go on to the next one, to win
Yeah.
the war.
I
So,
love that. I love that story. It's so visual. And I agree with it all.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah, and I think that key characteristic of a leader is persistence and determination, right? So
Sure. I
if you're
mean,
not a warrior, you can't be a business owner, especially as a woman.
No, and you know, and I think part of that too, like again, if you were in battle, if you think about that, like things are not going to go the way you want them to go. So you have to pivot. You have to come up with what's the next play. And that's constantly happening in business across, I mean, men and women. You know, entrepreneurs, there is no straight line. There is no, you know, like I said before, no playbook. There's nothing you plan goes as planned, you know. I mean, and
Never.
yeah, you have to be able to like just go with it, roll with it. Don't let it stop you. Don't let it get you down. Take your 30 minutes of, you know, to have a good cry or have a good
Oh
scream or
my God, it's so true.
and then you pick yourself up and the next day you figure out what's the next plan here, you know, and we do it constantly. I mean, daily. we're altering the course, you know. So
Yeah.
and that's you know, I think if you were mapping out the battlefield, you'd be doing that too, right? It's like, okay, regroup, that didn't work, we got to change course, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But the battlefield is a good point because you have other people that are on your team. And I think that's another piece, right? And this is Women's History Month. And it's not about just, and I'm just going to ask a question around this, right? So it's like all these women that have done amazing things. And I'm attending a gala, I think it's next week. I don't know, this month is nuts. For Women's History Month, and where they're, you know, awarding some very accomplished women in the literary fields, right? But you know, it's not just about the leaders, right? It's also about just the everyday woman in business supporting each other. So give us your comments, your thoughts about, like, this is a big question, but Women's History Month moving forward, what do you think it will take for more female entrepreneurs to make history?
Oh, well, I think first and foremost, believing they can, you know, I will tell you, it's funny, just yes, again, I keep referring back to yesterday's career day, but it's interesting when you talk to young people, kids, you're reminded, you have to go back to the beginning, right? Because you're telling them your story and you're giving them advice for their age and where they're at. And then you're like, oh, I remember that, you know, what I was dealing with. And actually, I remember, you know, I grew up performing in high school. So I was their age. I was singing and dancing and in musicals. And I never thought, oh, I could have a career in that. I always thought that was for someone else. Why? Why would I think that? I was successful. And I mean, I don't know why that seemed unattainable for, you know, and so I never pursued it. Now, a lot of the kids I was talking to are literally pursuing right now musical careers, whether that's to producers, you know, or performers. But the bottom line is they're not thinking like that. And I told them that. I said, this is the difference. You have been brought up to understand that anyone can be successful. You can throw it on YouTube and become a I didn't have that. So that always seemed unattainable. So I think now we have a whole generation or a couple of generations of people who now don't see you know, success as just other people having it. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Like that confidence of like, I can handle that. I can do that if I want to. I wish that would have been the case, but that's okay. You know, now I have that confidence. Now I will embark on things and I don't assume it's just for someone else. But I think that we will see that the evolution and more women, you know, making history, because it's not like, oh, men invent things, you know, not women. Of course, women invent things, you know, because, you know, whenever I see these flashbacks and these, you know, the top 10 women inventions in history, you know, when you see a lot of them this month.
Right. Yeah.
I had no idea, you know, going back to the 1800s. I'm like, who knew, you know? And then you think, wow, she, you know, really had some guts, you know, to put that forward. That was rare back then, super rare, you know? And so it just keeps getting better with each generation, every decade, I think. And I think now we see women as CEOs of major companies. And like I said, even the music industry itself, of course, is much different. We have a lot of women in top positions that weren't there 20 years ago. So I really think that's what it boils down to, having the confidence and not separating yourself going, oh, well, that's probably not for me. Yeah, that's a man's job to do that, you know? So
and I completely agree with you. I mean, last time I was in LA, I met with CAA about the PWHL. I don't know if you know, I play hockey. And I've been playing hockey forever. I think that's how I came up with this warrior woman thing.
I love it.
You know, and on the ice, it's very apparent. The boys are taught to be aggressive. The girls are not. And that's changing. But my point about CAA is I met with a woman who's trying to build awareness around the PWHL, which is a new professional women's hockey league under the NHL, just so you know. And her enthusiasm was so contagious when I met her. You know, I was like, hey, this is really good.
Yeah.
So I see it in the
Yeah.
I interviewed one of the founders of the LPGA
Hmm.
on, I don't know, a few episodes ago, and I met her at a golf event I played in. There were a lot of younger women there, and they're so unafraid. So I
Hmm.
think you're right. I think women are making history.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to see, and it won't be, you have to go back and look at, like, a newspaper to find it. It's just
Hmm.
out there.
Right,
So
exactly. And I will say this, one of the things that I've always struggled with, especially around, this month, and not just this month, is when people will say, well, women need to support women, just, and they stop there. And I've always had
right.
an issue with that, because I'm like, well, yes, but there's a but. Well, I want to support women who are actually the right fit for the job, or who actually, care about what they're doing. It's not just because they're a woman. And I think
Yeah.
that's changed. I think a lot of us, I think there was just that blanket statement for a long time of like, it doesn't matter. You just have to support women because we need women to support women. And I just always struggled with that, because I'm like, but what if I think the man's the better one for the position? It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to reverse discriminate either. I don't want the job just because I'm a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I don't want to be overlooked because I'm a woman, and I don't want to be discriminated against, but I also don't want it handed to me because you need to fill a quota of women. I
Yeah,
want to know,
yeah.
you
Oh,
and me, I'm the best one. And so I think that's changed a little, which I'm glad to see, because I think what it's done is, for those of us who were always a little hesitant with that phrase, who were like, I'm not jumping in just to support women. I want to jump in with good women. Now I think everyone's like, oh, we get it. Like, we all got to show up and be the top of our game. And it actually has, I think, encouraged women to do that. It's no longer a handout. I'm supporting women because you are the best one. You're the best at this, and you're the top at this. And I just went to an event. There's an organization called Visionary Women, which, if you're not familiar with, I would encourage you to look up, or anybody to, actually co-founded by one of my mentors here in Beverly Hills, Lily Bossy, who is,
oh, okay. I met Lily
yeah,
then.
she's three-time mayor here.
Yeah,
I
she's
mean,
pretty amazing.
trailblazer. She's been on city council for 13 years. She's about to
Yeah.
come off in April, but she is passionate about supporting women, has promoted a lot of women within. And so she's a co-founder with her good friend, Angela Nazarian, of Visionary Women. And it's huge. It's a huge organization. And they just did a huge event last week that I attended. It was well done. They always are, with Gwyneth Paltrow and Nicole Levant and
Oh,
Sharon Stone. And
oh,
really,
wow.
really, but meaty topics, not just fluff to have a celebrity there. Very,
Yeah,
very meaty
yeah,
topics.
yeah.
And so I think that's the other thing too. It's supporting women, but what's the purpose here? What are we getting out of it, and how are we helping each other? What's the meat? And so you've got to,
Yes.
you can't just be like, we're all getting around, getting together to cheer
Yeah, no,
together.
no,
I don't,
not
I
in.
had my sorority days and I loved them, but like now I want to like real. And so going back to like referrals and business and that sort of thing, we need to
Yes.
like, we got to get to business. We can't just be like,
Yes.
rah, rah, it's like, what are we doing?
Yes.
So yeah. So that's,
So,
my take.
Rachel Braun Churl, who is a former client of mine and a podcast guest of mine, now twice.
Uh-huh.
The last time I interviewed her, we were talking about money. It was the most refreshing conversation on the
Mm,
podcast, because she was talking about, yeah, we were talking about women supporting women, but she said, you know what? It's really the bottom, like, it's the bottom line. Like, if we're going to help women, let's help them grow their businesses. Let's
yeah.
help them find funds. Let's help connect them to business. I love what you said. Believe me,
Mhm.
we're on the same page
Mhm.
about not just the rah rah, I call it BS. That's why I
Yeah.
support women in business. I'm like, no, I'm over it. I don't
Yeah.
want that.
Yeah.
It's about how can we really, put our feet on the ground, think about the bottom line, help
Mhm.
other women so that we can see them grow. It's really exciting. That's
Right. Right.
anyway, that's
Well,
exciting.
and what I found too recently is that you've got kind of two ways of thinking. There's the groups that want to get together for like more of a more morale sort of like um
Yeah.
therapy session per se, maybe, or maybe they just need support to help boost their confidence. And there's nothing wrong with that. And
No, no,
that's,
no. Those groups are
I,
good.
I personally feel like, okay, I'm kind of past that in my career. I'm good. Like I'm fairly confident. Let's now like get down to it, and how can we truly network and help each other and bring men into it? That's the other thing. I think when you close the door to men, you close off some opportunities. Because like I said before, it's like many men have helped me and they're willing to help. So it's like, let's bring them into the conversation. And instead of it being a girls club or a boys club, let's just make it like the club. Like, this is it. We are the best of the best. And we're all in this room together and we're all helping each other. And naturally, you're all going to rise, right? Including the women. So at least that's my hope. That's what I'd like to see more of, to be frank.
Me too. I literally couldn't agree with you more on men helping. And it's funny when you were talking about a few questions ago about your mentor, it brought me back to the beginning of my career. It's weird. I worked at Young and Rubicam, the ad agency.
Oh,
Now it's a publicist. Anyway, that's where I started my career, just
okay.
And it was hard to get that job, believe me.
Mm.
So anyway, but there was a woman that was my mentor, and I didn't even think of it till now. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? And now I think, wow, how did she get that job? Right? She must
Right.
she must have been a warrior because
Yeah.
it's interesting if we all think back to like who actually kind of, because no one interviews me about this stuff. But it's interesting if you think about like who's helped you, and maybe they didn't, if they were so thankless about it. They were not, that they weren't necessarily looking for kudos. And I think that's also what it's our job in mentoring women, whether you're a man or a woman, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And, it's interesting. I love to like watch movies and hear stories about these older, and some are not even with us anymore, of course, like movie executives and people who are really behind, like the woman who's behind The Godfather, right? The whole casting of
Oh
The
yeah.
Godfather. There was a
It
whole
just had an anniversary, right? Godfather.
Yeah, and there was a whole, series on Paramount about it, which was fascinating. She lives here in Beverly Hills, and she's still alive. She's in her 80s. And and I haven't met her personally, but I know people who know her, and I'm dying to sit down with her. I would love, because I'm just like, wow, it's like mind blowing. I'm like, how did you get the job to begin with? And then how did you get so much power that now you're the one doing this? And I'm sure it was just, she would probably say hard work, and she proved herself, and then she had some men who trusted her. But I think there's a few of those in all industries, but especially entertainment. Those are the women that I find fascinating. The ones that were doing it in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when it was just unheard of. So yeah, I think we've got it easy now, honestly, comparatively speaking. So.
Compared to then. But those women that you mentioned, like that woman, she sounds amazing. How much wisdom can we glean from these people, right? I mean, it's just, or just taking, like you work with your mom, so I'm sure some of the traits that she's built have been kind of encoded into you. And, it's just, I think that's the key is respecting the women that have, this is Women's History Month, so respecting the women that have been there and done that, and trying to kind of model that with all that we actually have right now and leveraging that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I know we only have a couple minutes left. Maybe we ran over, but I don't care. I love talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk about key entertainment. I was also thinking when you said it's key, now that I know, and my apologies for mispronouncing, is as a musician. I'm thinking key signature, and how I have like this whole idea. Exactly. So key entertainment, what do you have coming up? Maybe events that you're involved with, or maybe programs that you want to let people know about. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So we are, it's funny. We have just recently in the last maybe 3 weeks submitted 3 proposals for upcoming potential work. And this is very much the nature of our job or our business. It's feast or famine. We always laugh, right? It's like there's nothing on the book. And then inevitably, you mark my words, it will be, here's 3 events and they're like on top of each other. Can you magically be in 3 places at once? And that's the way it usually goes. So we're actually waiting to hear back on those to see if they're coming through, because if so, that would be, they're actually right around the corner. It just so happens. So we are still, we're actually submitting, we'll be submitting a proposal for Formula One again. We were part of the first year, which was last year in Las Vegas, I should say, the first Las Vegas Grand Prix. It was the inaugural year. We worked on that all year, and that's the other thing. 1 year you have to do 3 or 4 huge events to cover your expenses. And then the next year you get 1 huge contract, you just never know. So we were fortunate to do that. And that was the inaugural year. And so of course, after we got through the race, they understandably so have done some shifting internally. They've hired some of those positions have been hired in-house, things like that. Once you get through year one, you kind of see what you want to do and change. So
Yeah, right.
we'll see if there's a role there at all for
So
year
where
two.
is that? So is that going to be, where is that and when is
Well,
that?
so Las Vegas now, they're planning to be there for at least 10 years. So this would be year
Oh,
two
okay.
in
I
Las
didn't.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, last year was their first year there. Lots of positive and negatives around that. Our experience, what we handled, which Mike, just to clarify, the three of us, the three principals were there working. We worked on it all year. I handled activations in the paddock area, which is where the garages and the hospitality for the teams are. We had some very, high, like it's the high end, of course, location. It's the hardest ticket to get, right? And it's usually kind of invite only in that area. So I was overseeing those activations. We did a wedding chapel and a bar and a casino, excuse me, and some other stuff, red carpet, stuff like that. So that was a really fun project. But then my mom, Nancy, who's Nancy, by the way, is her name.
Yes, I said she the whole time we're saying my mom, but go ahead.
I know. And you know what's
Nancy.
funny about that is when we're working, I refer to her as Nancy. Like I'm like, hey,
Well,
Nancy,
yeah, I mean,
if we're just
funny.
talking, because I go into work mode. And then when we're out of work mode, she's mom. So
These are all the different roles of a woman. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Conversations.
So Nancy was overseeing all of the talent. They had stages in all the fan zones across the track. She oversaw all the talent there and their movement and their production and, just dealing with all, there was an enormous job. And then Graham, my stepdad, who is our director of production, he was overseeing all of the sponsorship activations across the race. So I got the easy job out of the three of us. It just so happened to work out that way. But those were our roles. And we were really proud of what we did. We pulled it off. It all went smoothly. There were some dramatic moments with the race, of course, on the track and things like that, things that had nothing to do with what we were doing, but that's typical too. That's always going to happen with live events.
Of course, live.
So, but we don't, we'll see what this year brings. We're very optimistic. We're having a lot of conversations and right now, nothing major on the books to tout, but I've got some personal projects I want to work on myself that are coming up. I am planning, and I haven't even announced this publicly, but I'll talk about it here. It's something I've been wanting to do for probably 2 years now, right up your alley, but I think I'm going to launch a podcast of my own. And I will gladly have you on. But
yeah, I'd love to be on.
There's just a lot of aspects to what's going on in Beverly Hills that I'd like to continue to talk about. I think I have a voice in the community and, I like to hear from the community. And then there's a lot going on in the entertainment industry and in our world. So it's a little bit of a broad mix. But that's something a passion project I'd like to work on that I've been putting off, and you know how it is. You're like, oh, I'll get
a lot
to
of
it
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to dedicate your,
Exactly. Yeah. So I needed to kind of wait for the timing to be right for that. And I feel like it is, so that could be exciting. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Definitely keep me posted.
More to come. But
I was going to ask you about, in Beverly Hills, if there's anything going on in the community, business community that you want to mention that you're involved with or you're attending, just for those that are in Beverly Hills or,
I would tell, one of the things I think that people should know about, I don't know if it's sold out or not, to be frank, I haven't checked, but next week, I believe, is the Women Who Shine Gala, speaking of warrior women, and that's through the Chamber of Commerce. That's the Women's Business Network. I am an original founding member of that committee. That's a subcommittee of the Chamber. Not as active as I used to be, certainly with it, but I support those women who are behind it. It's grown tremendously. They did a great gala last year. I attended it, so plan to be there this year. That's coming up. Of course, we're working behind the scenes on the Next Night Street Festival, which is the street festival for the community that I help produce. We do hire a outside producer. My role is volunteer only. And that was through my work with the city on a committee. So I continue to do that. And that's always fun. We bring out about 5,000 people together. It's just
When is that? Is that?
We haven't set the date. It'll either be September or October, but it's always
in the fall. Okay.
Fall situation. Yeah. And then between now and then, we've got a new city council being installed, or two new people, I should say. In April, we've got summer concerts that happen in the gardens area throughout the summer. So, Beverly Hills it's more about lots of small things. I'll be frank. It's a small community. And we don't really have venues, big venues. So everything's just kind of small. We have Greystone Mansion. They've got stuff going on there. So it's very quaint, it's that sort of experience. But yeah, so I always love summertime though. I'm excited about spring and summer in Beverly Hills. It's fun.
Yeah, I've been to most of the spring and summer events. They're just, it's wonderful.
It is. And you really realize at those events how small the community is because you see the same, 50, 100 people at, and mixed in with others, but you really realize it's like a tight little nucleus of people who attend everything and are involved in everything. And they've really kind of become a family, to me. So I truly enjoy the community a lot. So.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so I just one more, well, two more questions for you. So one, do you have any, as it's Women's History Month, do you have any closing remarks and or advice to female business owners and women in the arts about how to move forward, how to find the connections? Because I think you talked a lot about today about relationships. And I love that you talked about.
Yeah.
If you're a solopreneur, let's say, and you're just starting out, or maybe your business is stuck and you're in the arts and entertainment world, let's say, any advice on, developing relationships, finding other women to network with, anything about that?
Well, I always say to everyone with networking, it's about showing up. You do have to show up. You've got to go to everything, or I shouldn't say everything. You're going to be somewhat selective because you do have to balance. But you do need to qualify, but you need to show up to things. Every time, inevitably, for 20 years now, every time I think to myself, oh, I do not feel like getting dressed for that. Oh, I do not want to put on makeup. Oh, I do not, and you think I'd rather just sit at home and watch some TV and like call it a night. When I force myself to go to something, I mean, I cannot remember a time where I didn't think, okay, I'm glad I went. I met so-and-so, or it was just a good experience, or whatever may have happened. But there's always something positive that usually comes out of it. So I would say you just have to be aware of what's going on in your immediate surroundings that could help you. Be selective, of course, don't burn out, but figure it out. Put it on your schedule. It's a meeting. It's not just, oh, if I can drop in, it's like go to it. Okay, so do that and show up.
That's really good advice. Wait. I just want to re-emphasize that.
Yeah.
It's a meeting. I love it.
Put it on there like it's a business
meeting. It's not just
art gallery opening.
Right. It's a meeting.
But it's a meeting.
It has a higher weight to it. So go ahead.
Right. And and go with that, and whatever the mood is, enjoy it, but just go knowing that you're trying to get something out of it. Okay. So you meet and be friendly and introduce yourself and all those good networking tips, right? So you do all that. The other thing I would say that's been the hardest lesson for us to learn is, especially starting your own business, finances. It's so stressful. So I would say if I could rewind, if I could go all the way back to us launching in 2018, I would say, and we had advisors. It's not that we just were like, oh, let's go with this. But I don't know that we had one good solid person to say, let's really work through all the finances, let's really map this out. It was like a little bit of advice from this area, from a banker, from a wealth advisor, from a lawyer, from a this, and you kind of put it all together. I would go back and do that differently. I would sit down with one strong financial advisor who really crawled into our stuff and really helped us develop that plan, because it adds stress to your life, right? You're trying to
Oh my God. So I just want to show this book. Well, you can't see it with my background. But last night I went to the Morgan Stanley event, and they just do so much for women in the city. That's why it excites me. And my goal is to be an expert in finance for myself. Okay. I don't want to sell financial services. But anyway, so they gave us a book. It's called A Woman's Guide to Life and Money. Yeah. And I'm all over this book. And it all talks about finance. You don't need to hire an advisor right off the bat, but you need to understand finances to be a business owner. Yeah. And yes, having a plan. I love that you talk about that. It is so, so important.
Well, and I know other women who are in other industries through the chamber who struggle, I mean, they just struggle to keep the doors open. And here's what I also learned, the hard lesson. It's not really easy to get a small business loan. Oh
my God. Well, listen, especially since 2009.
Exactly.
I have to say that.
Yeah,
that's difficult.
That's true. And you see commercials on TV, you get offers in the mail. I get offers all the time about
every day. Capital One sending me something.
And then the minute you inquire, it's like suddenly, oh, no, you don't qualify. I mean, so it's like, so yeah, just financing is tough. So just know that that's going to be a challenge unless you're just, independently wealthy, or you've got a strong investor or something like that. But that's the big lesson, you got to be prepared for.
I agree. So last question, how can people get in contact with you? And we're going to put this in the show notes, but best ways to get in contact with you, people you're looking to meet, anything about that?
Absolutely. I'm very open to talking to people. First of all, our, website is QUAYentertainment.com. Okay. So that you can learn more about us, the company, what we do. And you can certainly contact us through there, but my direct contact email would be Tiffany, Tiffany, at QUAYentertainment.com. So Tiffany at QUAYentertainment.com, easiest, fastest way. I'm always receptive. I answer every email. So don't be afraid. My Instagram, if you just want to get to know me a little bit better, and I'm always on it. And I post about everything. So it's social life, community life, business. That's The Real Tiffany Davis. My Instagram is The Real Tiffany Davis. So, but anyway, reach out in a DM, send me an email, always happy to talk, set up a call, chat, whatever it may be. And one thing I would emphasize is, I talk a lot about our large scale events that we do because that is our bread and butter. Let's face it, that's what pays the bills usually. But we are very adept and very interested in quality, smaller events. And I think that gets lost a lot in the message. So that's something I'd love to emphasize. So regardless of the size of your event, if that's something you're interested in us doing, please reach out. Let's talk about it, and I'll be very honest about whether or not it's something we would take on. But we work all over the country, all over the world. I mean, like I said, we do way more business outside of the Los Angeles area than within. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
The world is your business can be anywhere. I was actually thinking I would love to do because Warrior Women, I've hosted 24 events in 1 year and a conference. I don't even know how I'm alive. So but I was actually thinking we should do something. I mean, I'm planning out the Warrior Women event series for people that know in New York and looking to do that in Beverly Hills. So maybe there's something that we can do together.
I would absolutely
all the millions of things that I'm doing.
Yeah, no, and I'm in awe of what all you're doing. But that's I'm happy to talk about that. And I think there's other industries. There's a lot of women who just and coincidentally they're women, but recently who've said, they work in healthcare or they work in other, and they're like, I would love for you to help me because I'd love to put on something informational. We do that all the time. I mean, we actually one of the proposals we submitted was for a speaker series. It's not a concert. It's a but speakers are talent. And there's all those components are there, right? Staging and lighting and all that. And some of them are divas.
Some of them are. As a speaker and a singer myself, I'm surrounded.
Yeah. So, but I'm always open to all types. I that's what I love doing this. No 2 days are the same. No two events.
And the beautiful thing is that with COVID, I don't know. I'm not a health professional, and I'm not going to say that COVID is over, but I'm saying that COVID has waned down, and so the events are happening again.
Oh yeah, and, I mean events are happening.
I mean, you still protocols, right? But
I mean, it's interesting because everyone's like, I've got too much going on. But going back to our first part of this, it's unfortunately though the budgets they haven't caught back up. So I'm really excited when that day comes.
Let's have a crystal ball and make it happen today.
I know. 2024 this year it's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Like New Year's Eve, everybody was like, "Oh, thank God, 2023 is over." Like, whoa, what a statement! So anyway, no, this is going to be a great year. I'm super excited for Warrior Women in Business, and I'm sure Tiffany and I will be doing some Warrior Women event together, maybe more than one. So great. I want to thank you for being on. I just have a couple of closing notes. Again, anybody that's interested in talking to Tiffany, she is like not only a wealth of information, but just a generally good person. And I think like my ambassador to Beverly Hills. So, there's a lot. She shared such good information with everyone. Watch the episode, rewatch it when we edit it and put it out in its final form. And obviously, if you're visiting Beverly Hills, or most importantly, if you're looking for an event and something that's going to really do well, you should contact Tiffany and Key Entertainment, right? So spelled QUAY. So again, my name is Jasmine Sandler, Warrior Women in Business. We have a lot of good things coming up. Speaking of restaurants, Warrior Women in Business episode 52 is also coming out, where I'm interviewing this is very cool, 2 Guatemalan sisters that came to the United States, came to New York with like no money, and now they own 5 restaurants. I have no idea. They're
Yeah.
they're lovely people. I think I have dinner for the rest of my life for free over there. And so I'm interviewing them about like how they've done it. I think there are more restaurants than real estate reps in New York City. So you can just imagine the competition. And they did it how? By women supporting women, women getting together and just doing it. And it's a perfect example about what you were talking about, Tiffany. They have really embraced the community in Brooklyn and Queens.
Yeah.
So look out for Warrior Women in Business 51 with Tiffany, which will be edited and put out shortly, as well as 52 coming up with the Guatemala restaurateurs in New York City. Warrior Women in Business, we're definitely planning events. Definitely. This is actually, I love events. So our events, if you've been to them, they mix entertainment, social, and education. It's kind of like an all-in-one thing. So we do. And so if any of you are interested in being involved in the events, please contact me now that I know that we're going to be hiring Tiffany and her crew to put on some events. And look out for Warrior Women in Business, warriorwomenbusiness.com. Everything is in the show notes. Again, my name is Jasmine Sandler. Thank you so much, and happy Women's History Month. Again, thank you, Tiffany, so much for being on today.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Signing off.